Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Republics, where we make foreign policy, especially the US-India relationship, more real and relatable for our viewers. Through interviews with diplomats, entrepreneurs, policy leaders, and changemakers, we try to cut through the noise and get to the heart of how global issues actually affect us. Today's conversation is with someone who embodies that intersection of business, community, and international impact. M.R. Rangaswami is a Silicon Valley pioneer, an early investor, and entrepreneur, and the founder of Indiaspora, a powerful platform connecting Indian origin leaders around the world. He's also built bridges in sustainability through the Corporate Eco Forum, and his leadership spans tech, philanthropy, and diaspora engagement. In this episode, we dive into how identity, leadership, and purpose come together to shape global change. Mr. Rangaswami, thank you so much for speaking with us today. How are you doing?
Great, Karav. Thanks for having me on your show.
So I'm going to start with your personal journey. You were part of Silicon Valley before it was the global brand it is now. What drew you into tech and entrepreneurship, and was there any moments or a moment that changed your trajectory?
I wish I could say, Karav, I had the vision and the foresight to show up here, but I call myself an accidental visitor to Silicon Valley in the Bay Area because I had a comfortable but dead-end job in Houston, Texas in the 80s. And I went for some training, and the consultant there goes, "Tell me about yourself." And I go, "I have an MBA. I work in a manufacturing company. I have computer experience." He says, "What the heck are you doing in Houston, Texas?" Okay. And he says, "You should be in Silicon Valley." And at that time, that was 1982. Okay. And there was no internet, no LinkedIn, no Instagram. How the hell do I find people in Silicon Valley? So I had to use old-fashioned techniques of typed resumes, snail mail, and trying to find companies in this place called Silicon Valley, which at that time was really not a place that everybody knew. Sent a bunch of resumes. One person called me up, interviewed me on the phone. There was no Zoom, and then flew me out and gave me a job on the spot. So that was my entry into Silicon Valley, completely accidental. And in those days, there was no place really called Silicon Valley as it is today, that well known, nor were companies called startups. It was an ancient time for many of you listeners in the 18-year age group. Okay. So I went into a startup. I didn't know that was a startup. The company was $1 million a year in revenue, then went to two, then to eight, and then it went chapter 11. Okay. And a lot of people don't realize most companies in Silicon Valley fail. You only hear of the few successes. So that was my entry into Silicon Valley. And to give your viewership a little bit more color, when I went to Silicon Valley, there were 10,000 Indian Americans. 10,000. Fast forward now, there are 450,000 Indians in Silicon Valley. 45 times the growth in 40 years. That's been the impact of what our community has made to Silicon Valley.
That's great. It's interesting that you mentioned that you kind of accidentally got into Silicon Valley tech and entrepreneurship. A lot of young people today struggle to connect their passions with long-term impact. They have certain ideas that might go a long way, but it's very difficult to follow through on it. You've done both. What helped you think beyond just a job or a company and towards creating platforms like Indiaspora and CEF?
I think the main thing for each person to honestly ask themselves is, does this really matter? Whatever you're doing, you're starting a company, you're starting a nonprofit, does it really matter? Will, if this nonprofit or this company didn't exist, would it actually be detrimental or make a negative impact on the world? You got to really question yourself to say, why am I doing this? So I think asking yourself hard questions before you get started. Is this going to make a difference? Will this make an impact? Am I doing something consequential, if it's in a small way? I think these are serious questions. A lot of times people see entrepreneurs starting companies, they want to do one. It's a fad. And then soon they are disappointed, right? So I think whatever you do it, take risk, but really take risk that you decide is important for you and for the world. Okay. So I think that is something people forget to think about. They just do it because it's fashionable. So I ask everyone to look within themselves and then take that decision.
That's some great advice. What was your particular vision and message behind Indiaspora, and what did you foresee it to be, and how did you envision it for the future?
So it took me a year. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So anything I do, I invest time. And the first thing you invest in is who are the potential customers? So who are going to be members of this in diaspora? So I went and talked to over 100 leaders in the community across the United States. Okay. They were doctors, lawyers, CEOs, VCs, academics, artists, and asked them questions of what do you think the Indian community looks like? What do you think it should be? What ideas and what initiatives should we undertake? How should we come together? So I spent a whole year doing that. And then at the end of it, I invited these 100 people. Some I'd met in person, some I'd met on video calls, some I'd met on phone calls, and so forth. I invited them all to come together. And so I did take a year of investing my time and my energy to invite these people to come together. And it was great to see the response. 95 out of the 100 people showed up for the first ever meeting of Indiaspora in 2012. And that's when I realized that I was on to something. And keep in mind, these people, I made them go through hardship. They all had to fly into JFK from all across the US. Then they had to drive. In those days, there was no Uber. They had to rent a car. They had to drive 3 hours into the middle of New York, upstate New York, come to this hotel that looked like it was a Stephen King kind of hotel. It looked like a horror movie hotel, and spend 2 days with me at their own expense. Okay. When 95 out of 100 showed up, I said, we're on to something. And that core group laid out the initial agenda for Indiaspora. So whether you start something, you got to invest time, you got to invest money, and you've got to earn the trust of the people you're working with.
Thanks. That's very insightful, especially, the 95% that really supported your idea. I feel like that's the major stepping stone behind a lot of these companies. So, in a time where the US-India relations, which we at Two Republics spend a lot of time analyzing, they can have a bunch of ups and downs and seem unstable. How do you see diaspora communities acting as a stabilizing force beyond headlines, news articles, trade deals, defense deals, etc.?
Yeah. So again, we're in a weird time in the U.S.-India relationship. There's the tariff issue, there's the H-1B issue, lots of issues. But I tend to take a long-term view of this. When you look at U.S.-India relationship over the last 25, 30 years, it's been ever since the nuclear trade agreement or proliferation treaty was signed by President George Bush, it's taken an upward trajectory. But it's up and down, but overall it's going 45 degrees to the right. Okay. So I feel our relationship for the long term is is very robust and will be strong. In the short term, right now, we're seeing challenges. So that's the way I view it. And where does the diaspora play a role? I mean, this is where we can play a critical role, right? It's not government to government, business to business, it's people to people. The diaspora has tremendous connects. I call the diaspora a living bridge. It's a breathing, living bridge between the US and India and between other countries where the diaspora live in India. So the way I view it is it's a bridge. And this bridge is very strong and wide. So people go back and forth across this bridge, whether it's physical visits, whether it's Zoom calls, whether it's phone calls, whether it's WhatsApp messages. There's this traffic, immense amount of traffic going between these two. And that, I think, is the strength of the relationship between the two countries. The 5 million of us living in the US connecting with the 1.4 billion people in India continuously at all times. And that is the strength of this relationship. And that's why I believe long term, the oldest democracy and the largest democracy will work together, will be strong.
Do you think that India can also serve as a template for other countries in the global south that want to build their own diaspora communities, such as, Brazil, African countries, Southeast Asia? Can India lead the way to show that diasporic engagement can be beneficial for bilateral relationships?
Absolutely. And by the way, I forgot to mention when I started in diaspora, one of the communities I reached out to for help, there were two communities. One was the Jewish community, and the other one was the Chinese community. I just wanted to understand how other ethnic communities had done this, and they were very helpful. So, in turn, Indiaspora has been very helpful to other communities who approach us. Well, I did a show with the Caribbean diaspora. I did another event with the Jewish diaspora and so forth. So really trying to help each other in this regard. And I think the Brazilian diaspora and many other diasporas can really, play that similar role of bridging their homeland to different countries that the diaspora has gone toward. So I think this can be a model for any diaspora who connects with their homeland. Absolutely.
That's great. Moving back to your personal story again, what motivates you to stay involved across so many different sectors, tech, philanthropy, environment, and the environmental in diaspora? And can you just give us some insight into each one of them? And how do you decide where to focus, what to focus on, and how to effectively manage your time with each?
So the first thing I did, Karev, was in 1996. I kind of stepped out from the tech industry. I had a big exit, and I felt that was good enough for me to go have a family and do something else in life. And I stumbled upon, I also called myself an accidental philanthropist because the first convening I did of a community was CEOs in the tech industry called Enterprise, where I put together a philanthropic model with the group itself. So everybody paid $10,000 to be a member. We took all the profits that came after the retreat that we had and gave it to nonprofits. So that was my way of getting into both philanthropy, but also creating communities that make an impact. And so this community of CEOs over time gave away over $2.5 million of money directly and indirectly, another 25 million through CSR programs and such to a whole bunch of nonprofits. So I really felt gratified when I saw that happening. So the second community I started was the Corporate Eco Forum 18 years ago. This has now become a thriving community of 85 Fortune 500 companies that total $6.5 trillion of revenues to really work with each other to buy more renewable energy, to mitigate climate risk, to build sustainable supply chains, and so on and so forth. And then finally, of course, in diaspora, which is now a 35 million strong group of diaspora that live outside of India, people like you and I, 35 million of us. And if you look at the GDP of this 35 million, it's over $1 trillion. Just see what this robust and rich community can do for themselves in the countries they live in, but also for India. So I always look for impact in anything I start. What is going to be the impact? Forget the community, forget the idea, but is that going to be consequential? And that's something I clearly look at anytime I do something. Does it make a difference? Sometimes you do it for vanity, sometimes you do it because it's nice to do. It's got to be must do.
So, over the course of our discussion, you've talked a lot about impact, making a difference, having a question and answering what do I benefit for, the world and what my specific goal is. At Two Republics, we believe that young people shouldn't be bystanders to foreign policy, tech, etc. What's your advice to students and young professionals who want to be part of building bridges, whether that's between nations, cultures such as in diaspora, or their own distinct communities?
Yeah, I think the next generation is so critical because my generation, I believe, has created a lot of problems, whether it's climate or otherwise. And it's for you guys who are going to pay the price. So I want the next generation really to engage in everything we do. That's why at the Corporate Eco Forum, we have created a new group of leaders, young leaders who are coming up to take the mantle in their companies. At Indiaspora, we're now creating a new group for people like you call Indiaspora Next to take on the mantle of the future. So I think you and the next generation bring energy, bring smarts, and bring passion to these issues. The other thing you guys bring is you're fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, I don't know. You guys are going to live 100 years. Okay. Longevity in the world is increasing. So you guys are going to be around a long time. So noodle on that and say you don't have to do everything quickly. Some things have urgency, but some things, you have to pace out over 100 years of your life. Okay. So I urge young people like you not to kind of jump in and get 2 or 3 degrees and get a job by your age 25. Go take risks. Go work for a nonprofit. Go take a year off and backpack in the mountains. Do things to kind of find yourself before you jump in, get a job, before you jump in and get married, before you jump in and have kids, because you could still do that at age 35 and you'll still have 65 years of your life left. Okay, so look at it as a 100-year journey and map out the different stages. You want to learn, you want to experiment, you want to accumulate or enrich yourself, and then you want to give. But the giving can be at any phase in your life. You don't have to wait till the end like most people do. Giving has to be today in your world that you live in. You got to be giving your time or your money today.
Mr. Rangaswamy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We believe global change, again, begins with those individuals who dare to connect across boundaries of industry, identity, and nation. Today's conversation was a reminder that shaping the future is about the vision and values and building community wherever you are. For those watching, we hope this leaves you not just informed, but inspired to lead with purpose.
Thank you.